The Birdie Board Podcast is brought to you by the Birdie Board app, the easiest way to track matches, scores, and handicaps with friends. Now, here's your host, Corey, with another episode of the Birdie Board Podcast.
Welcome to the first ever Birdie Board Podcast. My name is Corey. I'm going to be the host for this podcast, and I'm going to just talk about what to expect in the show today. This show is going to be split into two parts. The first part is just to talk about this podcast. This is the first one ever, so I thought it would be probably smart for me to share what this podcast is going to be about. But also, what is Birdie Board? It's a pretty important part to the whole podcast, so I'll get into that a little bit later as well. But I'm glad you're here. I'm not sure how many listeners I'm actually going to have in this first episode. So if you're listening, you're going to be among the very first, and you're going to be able to say you've been with me since the beginning. So what is the purpose of this podcast? I think it starts with just the love of golf. I remember when I was younger, one of the first things I liked about golf was the cross-generational aspect of it. I remember when I was younger, I was able to play with my dad and my pup-up. And I just thought that was so cool that there's a sport out there that can bring people together that are cross-generational. And there's just not many things like that. Like my pup-up's wasn't going to go out onto a football field, and my dad barely could do that too lately. But we're all out on the golf course together. And it's a nice memory too for me. My pup-up has since passed. So when I play the game of golf, I remember him a lot, and it's cool to have those memories. Even last weekend, built some memories with my family and my best friend, Joe. We played 18 holes, and my dad was there and my father-in-law, and we all just played golf. And it was really cool. It's just a way to connect. And I think a lot of people miss that about the sport. Another cool thing I like about golf is I think it's a way that guys, and I know this is true for girls too, but definitely guys getting together and doing stuff together. I am a firm believer that relationships are built by doing things together, especially for men. I think doing golf is one of those things. There's not many men that will just go sit down and have a cup of coffee with each other. While I do think that's a good thing for guys to try to do, I think golf is that avenue for a lot of guys to build those relationships. So that's a big motivation to why I'm even starting this podcast. Why now too? Exciting thing is Birdie Board, the app, just got into the App Store. So it kind of corresponds with kicking that off and just trying to build some excitement around that app. And it's just to expand the goal of that app. So just kind of a hint is the app is built to be able to do golf with friends and family in new and unique ways, and let Birdie Board do all the scoring, and you kind of just relax and play golf. Like I said, I'll explain more Birdie Board later, but it's definitely a big motivation about why I'm starting this podcast in the first place. So I kind of imagine casual people listening to this, and even people who are really good at golf. But I'll be honest, I am a 20-ish handicap. I've had really good days and I've had really bad days. And I think that's what's unique about perhaps this podcast is I'm not coming to you as like a 5 handicap or 4 handicap and saying, hey, here's all these things that you need to do to get better. I'm coming in here as like, hey, here's the things that have helped me throughout my journey of being a golfer. It might help you, it might not. I hope it's more of a conversation. I hope I can read some comments someday and find out new ideas and things like that. So what will be the topics of this? So I really think it's a mix of everything. So this first episode is just kind of an introduction, as I'm sure a lot of first podcasts are, but I hope I'm talking about anything like stories and trips and different golf gear and culture and actual PGA events. And the Ryder Cup wasn't too long ago, so I'm sure I'll talk about that at some point. So I like to say that it's just anything and everything golf. And then it's also an avenue to share birdie board updates. And it's a passion of mine at this point to build this app for others. And I love that I have an opportunity to have an avenue to kind of share updates. So I think that's really the intro to what the podcast is and my goals for it. So moving on to this next part here, what is Birdie Board? So let me back up to July of last year. I went on a golf trip, and this is probably the biggest golf trip I ever went on. I've gone to some weekend trips with a couple guys, but this trip was unique where 8 of us planned a golf trip in Ocean City, New Jersey. And this wasn't just, hey, we're going to go play some rounds. This was like, okay, we kind of want to be competitive as we go through it. And it was kind of like a Ryder Cup format. So how we did it is across 3 days, we had 3 separate golf rounds. The first day, we played at one course. The second day, we played at another course. And the third day, as you can imagine, we played at yet another course. It was cool that we played at 3 different courses. People ask me that all the time. It's like, oh, did you do the same course every day? No, we did 3 separate courses, which was a lot of fun. So how we set this up from the beginning is kind of like a Ryder Cup format. I say kind of because you have to think like the Ryder Cup format. The pros, they play 18 holes to earn a point, split a point, or lose or get nothing. So instead of doing the whole round, we did it hole by hole. So there was a lot more points up for grabs, but we still split our 8 guys into 2 separate groups, and we tried to just do our best to make the handicaps pretty even. So we did do just like a red team and a blue team for 8 of us. The best golfer in our group was around an 8 handicap, and the worst was 36, just kind of give you a range. At the time, I was playing about a 17. I actually think that was a little low because I never even got close to that the whole weekend. But it was cool. The first day we did Team Stableford. So how we did Team Stableford, if you're not familiar with what Stableford is it's a different type of scoring for golf. Instead of low score wins, you get points for that hole. So, for example, there's 2 different scales. There's modified Stableford and regular. Regular is what we did. So what we did was 0 points for double bogey, 1 point for bogey, 2 for par, 3 points for birdie, 4 points for an eagle, 5 points for an albatross. And if you didn't know, what's above a albatross is a condor. I don't know if it's ever officially been achieved, but that would get you 6 points in the Stableford scale. Now, you might ask, like, well, why would you have eagle, albatross, and condor? Like, how rare are those? Well, they're pretty rare, but we were playing with handicaps. So, for example, the guy who had a 36 handicap, he got a par on par 3. So he was able to get 2 strokes deducted from a score, and he had a net hole in one. So there are a lot of ways for people to do that or get those lower scores, even though it's unlikely at a normal player without handicap. So that's how Stableford works. So what we did on day 1 is everyone got their points. So let's say I got a par. So that would be 1 or 2 points. And Matt on my team, let's say he got a bogey, that'd be 1 point. Noah got a bogey, that'd be 1 point. And let's say Ryan got a birdie, so that would be 3. So I'd have 5, 6, 7. Our team would have 7 points on that hole. Well, let's say the blue team who we were playing against got 8 points. Well, they won that hole. They get the point for the hole, and we repeat that through the 18. And then by the end of day 1, it adds it all up. It was pretty cool to see. For us, the end of day 1, the red team, which was the team I was on, had 9 points, and the blue team was 8. So things were pretty even by the end. Day 2, we split into duos. It was still pointed the same, where the winner got a point for the hole, but instead of Stableford, we did best ball between 2 teammates versus 2 teammates, and the best ball was put against the other best ball to determine who won the hole. And then the last day, we just did singles straight up, or not straight up. We still applied handicaps, but it was still the hole by hole. So all that to say, that's kind of where I started like a week ago. So I built this this tournament. I didn't host the whole weekend, but I took this idea of like how we're playing it day by day, all the pointings, and I built an Excel sheet, well, a Google sheet out of that to help host this tournament. And it was cool because everyone could kind of, since it was a Google sheet, they could have it up on their phones and they could put in their scores live. And then I have a software engineering background, as you might have guessed, since I built an app. So I did a lot of fancy formulas and stuff in the Excel sheet to kind of tie all the points together onto one overarching sheet to show the red team versus the blue team and each day's total points and stuff like that. And that weekend was a blast. And I think a big reason is, yes, we were all together, but because we had this Excel sheet that was doing all the work for us, we really could just focus on the fun and just focus on being with each other and playing golf. We didn't have to really spend much time at all on the actual scoring. But there was a lot of room for improvement. For example, in this Excel sheet, it doesn't do any handicap adjustments or anything like that. So that was still kind of done manually. And then you just put in your, let's say, your stable for a point in the end. But I thought that this could be a cool app idea, but I hadn't really started anything. So this was all back in July. Fast forward a little bit, we start planning this golf trip again for 2025. And I had the idea in May that I was going to take this Excel sheet and I was going to create it into an app. And it's going to work just in the same way. So in May, I started building, if you're familiar with software engineering, the back end of it. So this is kind of like the pieces that you don't actually see. It's kind of like the brains, the power of the whole system. I spent about 2 months just building that because I thought it was really important to get that right and really important to get the scoring right and consistent and making sure it's reliable. And then come July, August, September, even though that's a longer period of time, it was spread out my work because I'm doing this in my free time whenever I can find it. That was kind of where all the UI stuff was done. So you cross all those months, and then finally in September, I was able to get the app into the App Store. And that lined up perfectly because next weekend is our 2025 golf trip. And we're going to use Birdie Board for the very first time. Now, I've been testing Birdie Board on smaller scales, weekend trips and stuff like that. But this will be the first multi-day golf round with 12 different guys. So as of right now, we have the match set up in the Birdie Board app. The lowest handicap right now is 9 and the highest is 29.5. We're splitting into 2 separate teams. One of the cool things about Birdie Board is it can take everyone who has signed up and consider all their handicaps, and it will do an auto balance to make sure the teams are as equal as possible. It is possible to kind of manually set the teams after, like if you really want to make sure to have some matchups and stuff like that. But that's how I've set up. So that's kind of like the whole story about how did Birdie Board would you even call like the first version of Birdie Board that Excel sheet? Maybe it has similar functionality, and then it kind of iterated into this app. But essentially, like what Birdie Board is solving is that there's complex scoring mechanisms, especially when you're having multi-day rounds or you want to play different types of game modes like stable forward or best ball or things like that. Like that can really complicate a golf round. And there's some apps that are out there that try to solve it, but I just didn't feel like those apps could do what we were looking for it to do. Thus kind of where it led to my Excel sheet originally, and then finally evolved into this app. And like I said, it's just formats beyond basic stroke play without handicaps are just hard to manage. So this app does everything. It does handicaps if you want. It does different game modes like stroke play, stable forward, best ball, traditional match play. You can even put in a course rating and a slope rating, and it's going to handle all the adjustments automatically for you. All the user has to do, which is really cool, is just put in their raw score. And that's it. The Birdie Board takes it from there. It does all the rest of the work. and just lets you guys focus on the fun and the community aspect of golf and just enjoying each other. So that's what Birdie Board is. The vision I have for Birdie Board is it's just something that golfers love to use. I think the app is built in a way where it can be used in conjunction with other apps. For example, I like Arcos a lot. It's a golf GPS that kind of has these little tracker things on my clubs that tracks all my stats. Birdie Board's not meant to replace that. It's not meant to replace like 18 birdies. You can actually use it alongside those apps. Let Birdie Board kind of do the scoring, have fun with friends, things like that, and then you can still use all your golf statistic apps and everything you love. But what's cool about that is it can also be kind of used by itself. So if you just wanted to use Birdie Board to help you match or score a match, that's fine too. And I would love for you guys to do that. Well, if you've made it this far, hopefully you actually are enjoying the podcast. It's probably a 90% chance you're my wife listening right now or one of the guys on the golf trip that's coming up because I'm sending this to everyone. But I'm really excited for this podcast. I'm excited to see how it grows. I'm excited how Birdie Board can really become a bit of a golf community, and it's a place that we can just share time together and grow together in the game that we all love. So that's it for this week's episode. I'll probably be back next week. I'm going to try to do at least one episode a week. I'll talk about the golf match that we had, maybe touch on the Ryder Cup a little bit, which was just last weekend. And we'll go from there. We'll just kind of see how this podcast grows. Thank you for listening to the first ever Birdie Board podcast. I look forward to having more of these in the future.
Thanks for tuning into the Birdie Board Podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and share it with a friend who loves golf as much as you do. And before your next round, grab the Birdie Board app, free on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, and let it handle the scoring while you enjoy the game.